Is this really worth 200 bucks? Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video I'm going to do a review of the Bushmills Single Malt 21-year-old. Now, I think this is an absolutely fantastic whiskey, and as you can see, I'm already halfway down the bottle, and it's only been open for a couple days. But I also think this is going to be somewhat of a controversial whiskey that I know down in the chat, down in the discussion, there's going to be a lot of people who make a lot of negative comments. There are going to be people who absolutely love it. There are going to be people who like stick their nose up at it. There are going to be people, maybe some people who are going to say meh. But I think this is a really controversial whiskey, and for a number of different reasons. But before I get into that and give you my personal opinion about this whiskey, here are my notes. The Bushmills 21-year-old single malt Irish whiskey is made from 100% malted barley. It's triple distilled. It's aged 19 years in bourbon and Oloroso sherry cask, plus 2 years in a Madeira cask. It's bottled at 40% alcohol by volume, and in my neighborhood sells for $200. Now, there's several things that are going to be controversial. One is going to be the price, ultimately. 2 is the ABV, and 3 is the whiskey itself. Let's start with that one. So when I first opened it and started get past the neck pour, getting into the shoulders, I thought the whiskey was really awkward. What I mean by that is it seemed disjointed. It didn't seem to have a nice transitions in aromas and flavors. But I liked what was there. It just the way it was structured. So on the nose, you get from the sherry cask those fig, dates, and raisins, which I really like. It's sort of classic sherry cask. But it also has, from the Madeira cask, it's like a dried apricot nose. In fact, it's almost like exactly like a dry apricot nose. It's got some loads of spice, perhaps some like a dried rub that you might put on a meat before putting on a barbecue. It's got some vanilla. Definitely has some other citrus notes, perhaps some lemon and orange. A little bit of chocolate, nougat, and basic candy bar components. Really nice in those. Now, structurally, I like a complex whiskey, one that has a lot of layers to it. But going from the front to the middle and into the finish, it should have some like smooth transition. It shouldn't seem like the different components are sort of fighting with each other. Sometimes when you first get into a whiskey, and this happens with wines as well, it needs time to breathe. It needs time to open up. It needs time for a little bit of oxygen to get in there and allow these different components to sort of help the whiskey integrate. So when I first opened it and smelled it and tasted it, I was like, oh no, did I just blow 200 bucks? I was a little bit disappointed, but as it opened up, as I got past the shoulder, it really did change. It became a lot more integrated. The transitions became a lot more smoother. And I'm not necessarily talking about texture. I'm talking about the transitions were much more integrated, right? Rather than, imagine an orchestra that doesn't have a conductor. And everybody's playing at the wrong time. The violins and the cellos and the percussion and everything. They're just not playing together well. I had been to concerts. In fact, it was a Handel's Messiah concert in which throughout the concert they would change conductors. And you could tell the difference, even though same musicians, you could tell the difference in the quality of the music by the change in the conductor and how well everybody was playing together. This was it was a college performance. So you're talking college students, and not like the San Francisco Symphony or something like that. But you could tell the quality of the music changed because how the conductor was getting everybody to play. Something happens with wines and whiskeys with that as well, is the different components don't necessarily play together well. They need a really good conductor. But oxygen sort of does that, the role of the conductor, and helping it to open up and the different components become much more integrated. And then I could relax. I was like, okay, I didn't blow 200 bucks on a whiskey that's just really messed up. It really opened up really nice. In fact, with those very, very stark contrasting components of the dried black fruit notes and that sort of citrus as well as the apricot notes really put some stark contrast in these flavors. Because, I mean, apricot and citrus is a completely different, you're talking about, you know, orange and yellow fruits versus dried black fruits. There's a huge contrast between those types of fruits. And on the palate and then on the nose, it ends up providing a really nice transition, a lot more layers of complexity. So on the palate, the spice really pops a lot more than on the nose. Yeah, I was getting some spice on the nose, but I'm getting a lot more on the palate. The other interesting thing about this whiskey is it starts off more sort of sweet up front, and then it gets a little bit of tanginess, which again reminds me of the apricots, right? If you ever eat dried apricots, there's a tanginess to dried apricots. Or if you ever have dried apricots used in some Asian dishes, it provides a nice tanginess to the dish. And so you start off with the dried black fruit notes, which you're getting from the sherry cask. And then on the back end, you're getting more of the citrus, orange, as well as that dried apricot. And I really like the complexity and the layers to it. It's really, really an interesting whiskey that you can sit there and enjoy the ride of the different components to the whiskey. As it's not something just sort of like a one chord song from beginning to end. It doesn't have what you think of an Irish whiskey, which I sort of associate more with a silkiness texture. It has much more of a malty, gritty is not the word I'm looking for, but I think you know it. If you're familiar with malted whiskeys, there's a little bit of that, this very distinctive malty character there. Although it's somewhat lighter in its feel from the triple distillation. So it's if you're familiar with Auchentoshan, if you're more into Scotch, it has the sort of lightness of a triple distillation, and yet it has that malty character. And some people don't like that. I do. And the maltiness really shows up on the back end. I like the complexity, I like the layers, I like the transitions, I like that maltiness on the back end. I like the sort of almost ethereal lightness to the whiskey. And then, so I really, really like, I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm really, really impressed with the layers of complexity with the whiskey. So, which brings me to the next point, which is, it is 40% alcohol by volume. All of the core range whiskeys from Bushmills is 40 ABV. And this is where I know a lot of people can get really upset, get ticked up. I'm not spending that kind of money on a whiskey that's only 40 ABV. That's, you know, I'm buying expensive water if you're spending that much. I'm going to say this. Are you really concerned about alcohol, or are you concerned about aromas and flavors, right? I care about aromas and flavors. And if it takes a higher ABV in order to give some strength and power to deliver those flavors, then I'm right there with you. But if you can achieve high quality and very complex layered whiskeys without having to have real high ABV, then I don't have a problem with the 40% alcohol by volume. It's about what is accomplished, which is the quality of the whiskey, not how much alcohol I'm getting. How do you get intensity and layered flavors in a whiskey without having a lot of higher alcohol? Pretty simple. Number one, quality casks. Number two, the art of blending. Someone who blends really, 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 really well. Someone who artfully puts the components together so that it really displays a great profile. And I think this whiskey does it. I think it's really artfully made. I really, really like this whiskey. I didn't at first, but I've really grown to really love this whiskey. It's an absolutely fantastic whiskey. Now, the third component, which I mentioned first, that's going to be controversial about this whiskey, is the price. $200. Now, search around on the internet, you might be able to find it closer to $180, but I've also searched around and saw it as high as $250. That's insane. Is it worth $200? When you ask that question, you have to think, okay, do I know of other whiskeys that are qualitatively on par with this but are going to sell for a lot less. I think this is because of the cask that they use, because this is a Madeira cask finished whiskey, and I think it has a very unique profile that's not easily going to be matched for the money. Are there whiskeys that I like more that are far less? Yes, I would say that, but they don't have this profile. This has a very unique and distinctive profile. There are some, I would say, peated whiskeys, some sherry cask whiskeys that I'm more in love with. Maybe even some bourbons that I'm more in love with that would be, half this price. So, whether or not to pull the trigger, I would say if you have the opportunity, if you can taste it first before you buy, try before you buy, highly recommend it. If you are an Irish whiskey fan, that's your niche, that's what you really, really like, then I would say, yeah, have a bottle of this in your collection. If you're just looking for, a good dram that you're just going to enjoy and like that, you're not looking for something, you're not looking to geek out on an Irish whiskey, then maybe you would want to pass, because I think qualitatively, I think there are a lot of whiskeys out there, and I'd say this, I know there's a lot of Scotch versus Irish competition that goes on, but I can think of a lot of whiskeys, even some Texas single malts, that I might enjoy more that are going to be far less expensive, right? But as it is, if you really are an Irish whiskey aficionado, or that's really that's your jam, yeah, I would say go ahead and buy that. Just like some Ardbeg, bottles are way too expensive, all right, like the 19-year-old, the Trayvon. For the average person, I would say don't spend $200 on a bottle of the Ardbeg 19 Trayvon. But if you're an Ardbeg fan, yeah, spend the $200 and buy an Ardbeg 19 Trayvon. That's sort of what my call is going to be on this. Now, I haven't given them a score yet. When I'm going to give them a score, I'm going to go 92 points. 92 points. And it's a really, really good whiskey. I think it has the layers of complexity to get me over the 90 points. I think it has a range of flavors. I like the structure of it. What keeps me from going even higher than that? I think it's got a good length finish as well. I had mentioned the finish. I think I would like a little bit more oomph. A little bit more oomph. I don't know how else to express that, but a little more pow for $200, which means higher ABV. I would like 46, minimally 46% alcohol by volume, and that's my take on that one. Alrighty. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have any disagreements or agreements with me, make them down below in the discussion group or in the chat down below. If you are new to my channel and you like the content I'm putting out, I'm going to ask that you subscribe if you have not already. And if you are part of one of my Patreons, you've joined my little group, I want to thank you very much for supporting this work. All right, and until next time, Slanjiva.